The non-Jews have 7 laws of Noah. That's all you got to...
Well, hello. My name is Bruce. I'm a podcaster. I do a show called the Telemanca Review. I've been indisposed as of late, but I'm back now. And what a wonderful world it is. I can hardly believe what I'm seeing now. It's really kind of mind-boggling how everything has just sort of gone wah-wah in the shortest amount of time possible. How it's all gone into overdrive. How it's all gone into hyper-narrative now. Okay? So for those of you who did read The Devil in Us, this is a perfect time to start deconstructing these events through the lenses that you've been given in those in that publication. Okay? So within that construct, the construct of a world controlled by, well, I guess ultimately extraterrestrials, but in the human form, human agency and institution that is becoming anything but human the further we go into this new century and this new millennium. And, far be it from me to take a moment of Schadenfreude, which is shameful pride. But I have been on the right page of this circumstance since day one. Okay? And I defy anybody to tell me differently. Okay, so, I mean, all the way back, I've been saying that really what's going on here, and how far back am I talking about? I mean, for me, this goes back to like 2020. You can see a whole bunch of interviews I did on BitChute. Go to BitChute and just look up Bruce McDonald. I did 12 hours of interviews with one guy for The Light of Darkness, and that's really the only publication I did on the book. There was a feeling around the book at that time that it was better to just not talk about it and to just let it go out and find its readers. Because it was extremely, at that time, it seemed like an extremely negatively charged book to me. Nonetheless, it went out, and it doesn't seem so negatively charged now. It seems like a newspaper now. You know, it seems like everybody's caught up with what I was saying in there. But not everybody's caught up with The Devil in Us yet, though. But they're getting there, which is kind of amazing when you think about it, you know. What does this mean, Open Studio? Okay, yeah, let's do that. Hey, Kitty. How are you? Nice to see you. Thanks for showing up. Yeah, I can close this and I can just go with studio. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Where was I? I lose myself so easily. So the time we're in and everything that's going on here now, what I was talking about 5 years ago was that, look, they're going to go with the religious narrative. They're going to go with, or somebody, I'm not sure if it's they or them. What do I mean by they or them? I mean, let's just say that within certain factions, there's fighting. The division goes all the way up to the top. So they fight amongst themselves. And usually when that happens, innocent people end up getting killed. That's how they make their point with each other, is they kill innocent people. They kill the other side's innocent people. So we're in the midst of, I don't know what even to call it. It's a massive religious psyop. Okay, well, first of all, let me get my ducks in a row here. So what's happened since I've been podcasting or not podcasting? Well, the Republican nominee for the presidential election in November, Donald John Trump, was shot and grazed by a bullet on the right ear, allegedly. Okay? Now, I think I might have touched on this the one time I popped on air, but the thing I'm getting at here is a lot of people are going around talking about this like it's business as usual, like this is just another psyop. This is like the way they killed John Lennon, or the Charles Manson psyop, or, whatever chop shop nonsense you want to throw in there. But this isn't. It isn't. And nor do I think it's an act of God. Okay? This is a very important thing, okay? So was Trump maybe protected? Yeah. But just because you're protected from the other side doesn't mean it's God. You understand where I'm going with this? Okay, and again, the spiritual maturity in our society is so, I don't know what the word is, low, juvenile, ridiculous, that, oh, God saved him. He moved his head. It just grazed his ear. God saved him. I can think of a lot of things that could save a person in a situation like that, and most of them are not God. Although God could do that, but I seriously doubt he would. God's not theatrical in that way. The Jewish God is. He's a drama queen. Everything's theatrical with that God. I shall smite thee. I will see your women raped, and I will see your entire seed taken off the earth. He's a drama queen. Yahweh or Jehovah or Hashem or whatever his name is. He's a drama queen. Okay? But the God I know and understand is way more subtle than that. You never see him coming or going. The only reason you know that he was there is somebody used the towel in your bathroom. There's none of this like, oh, look at that, it's God. So we're in an epic stage of the game now, all right? Let's take a look first at my hero and yours, Donald J. Trump.
Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw, been in trouble with the law since the day they was born. Straightening the curves, flattening the hills. Someday the mountain might get 'em, but the law never will. Making their way the only way they know how. That's just a little bit more than the law will allow. Just a good old boy, wouldn't change if they could. Fighting the system like a true modern day Robin Hood.
So all the dirt's coming in on this Vance guy now, and I watched a brilliant, scathing deconstruction of that piece of shit by Whitney Webb of Unlimited Hangout, and probably at this point most famous for writing the most extensive material on Epstein. She wrote 2 epic books. She's an excellent researcher. She's an expat like myself, lives in Chile, And she follows formal journalistic rules, like 1970s rules. I highly recommend her. You may not agree with her on everything, but she's thorough. Anyways, this Vance guy, so what am I saying? Okay, so before I say any more, let's look at the present moment. There's no guarantee that they're going to keep this person as their nominee, but at the present moment, this is the Democratic nominee for the presidential election in 2024 November.
Remember Venn diagrams, those three circles? Right. And then let's just see where they overlap. You will not be surprised because I have constructed a Venn diagram on this. Remember those three circles, how they overlap? I love Venn diagrams. So I just do. Whenever you're dealing with conflict, pull out a Venn diagram, right? And so, the three circles. The television coverage of just yesterday, that's on top of everything else that we know and don't know yet, based on what we've just been able to see. And because we've seen it or not doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but just limit it to what we have seen. For us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present. I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been,
6 former administration officials last week wrote that open letter urging the administration to change course, to change strategy. Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. Every day it is time for us to agree.
Our Supreme Court is on the line. Our basic freedoms are being tested, Madam VP. I know you've been traveling across the country. What are you hearing?
Yeah, girl, I'm out here in these streets. And let me tell you, you're right, Taraji. There is so much at stake in this moment. The majority of us believe in freedom and equality. But these extremists, as they say, they're not like us.
They not.
You can't make this shit up. It's like there's a writer's strike at the propaganda factory. I swear to God, Jon Stewart should just quit TV. Bill Maher should quit TV. They should all just go to Washington and start writing for these people, because this is beyond stupid at this point. Okay? And what have I been saying since 2020? Well, when I suggested that the Third Temple of Solomon might be a lot more important, not necessarily as a reclamation of Jewish identity and centuries of displacement and victimhood. And I don't want you to think that, how do I word this? There are many people in the Jewish population that have been victims and displaced as a result of what I believe other parties within that community do. The stuff we got into in great detail in The Devil in Us, So I don't think it's all of them. It would be like, again, I always use the example of, can you blame 1.5 billion Catholics for all the child sodomites in the Vatican and in various parishes? No, you can't. Okay? But you got this idea of the reclamation of self and the reclamation of identity and the restoring of what we'll call historic wrongs that go back to 72 AD, which was when the Romans decimated the Jews and tore down their temple. Okay? Now, when I first started bringing this up in 2020, people thought I was completely out to lunch. A few cutting-edge people, they caught on and they went, yeah, this is a possibility. I don't see it as strong a possibility as you do, Bruce, but it is a possibility. So what they're struggling for now is a way to rectify their narrative and bring cohesion and unity to the general public. And this would be America, the West in general. And they can't think of any other way to do this other than a unifying religious narrative, because the West as a spiritual entity is fracturing. We don't have a common dream anymore. Science can't really hold us together. We're not even keeping up with the gadgets they're inventing for us. And there's not enough of a mythos and a spirit there to define a people and define a culture. We've become, I guess, in many ways too sophisticated for a culture. And this produces, of course, the radical left, which succumbs to ideology, which is spiritual arsenic. It's really the language of Satanism. Ideology is the devil's language. It's trying to make sense of the world through ideas, and the world is a spiritual construct, not an ideological construct, not a set of ideas. Ideas are the trait of human beings. And because we're so vain, we think they're really important because no other animals get them. So ideology must be able to save the world. I think, therefore I am. So on the one sense, I understand the yearning people have. Okay, so and that, in a sense, that's what I'm pantomiming when I do that. That everybody wants to go back to an order that everybody agrees on, a set of consequences everybody agrees on. Hell, heaven, all of these sorts of things. But there's no going back for the West. Because one thing that our intellectual growth spurt did was it destroyed our old religions. And in many ways, justifiably so. They are turning out, as we examine them more closely now, both the Jewish and the Christian constructs to be absolutely vile, with the exception of individual practitioners who become the light of the religion. And in some small way, I suppose, redeem it, but not fully lift it up at an institutional and cultural level. So how can we go back to the religious narrative? Well, it's a lot like Project Bluebeam, which was the fake alien invasion, except the technology for the casting and the scenes and the framing of this narrative, it's all religious. It's not scientific. But they had both options. They had the option of some kind of scientific rendition of our consciousness or some kind of religious rendition of our consciousness. But what they've realized is there's no unifying rendition of consciousness now. It's a good phrase. That just came off the top of my head now. I'm on day 8 of a fast. I have not had food in 8 days. You get it's really get into a really weird and not weird, but different space when you're fasting. I highly recommend it for those of you who have never fasted before. I highly recommend you give it a try and see how you do at it, because it's a fascinating practice. And it's so good for you in so many ways. It takes all the stress off your body for the time you're not eating, because processing food is the number one user of energy in your body. It's not the exertion of your muscles, it's the digestion process. Yeah. The engine of the stomach, which produces the energy for the body, is itself the largest consumer of energy in the body. And so when we're not digesting food, everything comes awake. Your immune system goes out and does repair jobs it hasn't had time to do. And a lot of us, we burden our bodies by eating too much food. I was getting a little roly-poly there. That's what happens when you're married, right? The wife, they just fatten you up. That's what their job is to fatten you up so you can't run away. I'm kidding, of course, but they do that. And then when you go through the fasting process, there's a whole psychological component to it as well, where it reminds me of what a Buddhist friend of mine said about, how you have to have a number of 10-day meditation retreats under your belt before they'll let you try a 30, because in a 30 days of silence, a lot of stuff can come up, and a lot of stuff does come up. So it's the same thing with the fast. A lot of stuff comes up. It's very, very intense and engaging process. All right, so what am I saying here? What am I talking about? I'm talking about the state of the world. I'm talking about, everything that's going on. I'm talking about the impossible now. How did we arrive at such an absurd narrative in our world? How did we arrive at this? What are we going to do about it? What is this narrative really? What is this? Let me take a look here.
There is a...
No, that shouldn't be in this show. I don't know why. That's lingering from Stardust Ranch. I got to clean out my OBS scenes for those of you who podcast. So, okay, let me explain it to you this way. It's really the same thing I'm saying all the time in my podcasts. You have to learn to be your own savior in every way. In every way. You have to, through your divine creativity, you have to find your way out of the dangerous circumstance you have found yourself into. I can tell you that there will be no cleaning up of America at the federal level. It's a long way off before stability and balance comes into government again. And I'm sorry to say, if somebody really put a gun to my head and said, Bruce, you have to make a choice, who would you vote for? I would still go with Trump. But that's only because one of the ancillary benefits of him is he'll spin up the domestic economy again, get energy producing, start selling oil, create jobs, circulate money in the economy. And he'll do some good and practical things for the economy. Whereas Biden and Trudeau in Canada seem to be deliberately collapsing their own economies. There's no other explanation for their behavior. Dilapidating infrastructure, insecure cities, rising immigration, uncontrolled immigration, and most of the spending is outside of the country. They're still sending all kinds of money to other countries, which are just bankruptcy operations at this point. It's fleecing. It's like when you look at it through the financial lens, and you understand what's going on, the countries are just being, it's like a fire sale. It's a bankruptcy sale is what it is. Okay, it's a bankruptcy sale, and they just haven't told the people. Okay, that's the state of North America. Now, to get out of this, you're going to have to reset your whole economy. And to do that, you're going to have to leave all of the arranged structures that you exist within. Which is ironic because America was the big gun that brought everybody into those structures in the first place. The International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the World Economic Forum, global migration, aided in the migration to Europe. America's contributing to the United Nations. The United Nations is paying for all that stuff. They do that through money donated by other countries, largely the first world countries. There you go. Right? So you're being destroyed by yourselves. Your own government is working against you now. Now, what does that mean? What does Trump represent? Well, Trump represents an opportunity to die a different way. So you can either die in the gulag, because those are your only two options now are the gulag, which is the prison for a Soviet country, a communist country, brutal gulag, or the synagogue, which for non-Jews represents Noahide law and global rule from Jerusalem. Okay? See, I don't think this WEF thing or any of that stuff was ever even real. I think that's all just distractions or ancillary bodies to bring in the centralized rule, which will probably be in Jerusalem. Okay? Now I'm going to play another clip now. I got a bunch of clips for this show. And in this one, I want you to take note now. Ari Sharif is a mainstream liberal Jew. Okay? He's a stand-up comedian. Here he is with Tucker Carlson.
Non-Jews have 7 laws of Noah. That's all you got to do, and you get into heaven. And they're pretty easy.
They're great.
They're pretty easy. Don't eat an animal while it's still living.
Exactly.
Should be a no-brainer.
Don't kill.
Don't kill. Harder for some people, but not others. Don't rape. Even harder for some people, but most are still on the right side of it. I forget what the other ones are.
Adultery.
Yeah. It's not that hard. And you get to go to heaven. And you'll be right alongside a rabbi.
Well, not only that, they're like very reasonable.
Yeah, they're not like hard ones to do.
No, they're all kind of rooted in natural law.
Yeah.
No, I read that. And
yeah, when you convert, they're like, what are you doing this for? You're just going to make it harder on yourself. You're going to heaven already.
That's interesting. Okay. You don't feel there's any contempt at all in that.
There becomes contempt, at the end where it's like, well, you're not in our group, so kind of fuck you. But that's not in the law. I mean, even Jesus is like, accept everyone, take them in.
Right.
But people don't really do that.
No.
Not
at all.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that the Sabbath laws are, like if you're using somebody else to do something that you're not allowed to do.
Yeah. Well, I talk about the loopholes in that special where it's like you're actually not allowed to fully ask them, can you turn this light on? Because then that's like you doing it. But
So
you
it's
can be
by
like,
implication.
It sure is dark in here. I'm not allowed to turn the lights on. Non-Jews are allowed. But I can't do it. It does suck. I want to read. Yeah, it's so loophole-y. It's great.
I didn't know what the Talmud was
Yeah,
until pretty recently. I'm reading it. I actually think it's really interesting.
it's very interesting. But there's this. So one of the commandments, you try to do as many as you can. Some of them are big temple based, so you just can't anymore. We don't have a temple.
Not since 70 AD.
Boom. They're going to have another one in the Messiah, they say. So those laws will be back. But you try to do as many as you can. They're good deeds and they're bad deeds, but they're all like commandments. 613 of them.
Amazing.
It's nuts. When you get up the road from Tel Aviv, it's a windy road. And as soon as you get over that hill, it's a costume party. It's Fiddler on
It's
the Roof.
the best.
It's so weird. It's like you're living in an ancient time.
It's the most interesting place on the planet.
There you go. If you had any doubts about where Tucker's at, read the Talmud. Thinks it's an interesting book. I wonder if he got past the introduction. So, if you don't get it, okay, let me explain it to you. The amount of arrogance and hubris now being displayed by American Jews is mind-boggling. He just, in his own way, Ari Sharif, just said, in his own way, we're God's chosen people, we were chosen to do this, you're not, and justified all of these ridiculous laws. Okay? There's nothing law-based about God other than the natural law you can apprehend. And the one law above all other laws is do unto others as you would have done unto you. Okay? That's it. It's really no more complicated than that. So if you don't like getting robbed, don't rob people. If you don't like getting sexually assaulted, don't sexually assault people. Right? If you don't like being disrespected, then don't disrespect people. It's very simple. We don't need 613 laws. And I can't even believe that I've been right, that this is the play they're going to go with, that it's Noahide law, it's the third temple, and it's all this bullshit. It's just mind-boggling to me. I thought they were going to go with the alien invasion. Okay? I honestly thought that's what they were going to do, to create a kind of consciousness gestalt to bring us all into harmony again. That would be their order out of chaos. But I don't think there is any order out of chaos this time. I think the only chaos is being manufactured, which is artificial chaos, because if chaos isn't spontaneous, it's not chaos. Right? Let me repeat that, because that's actually a very subtle insight there. If chaos is not spontaneous, it's not chaos. Okay? You cannot say something that's manufactured cannot be chaos. Okay? You can manufacture chaos because it when the fire gets beyond the parameters where you can control it, then you've created something you can no longer control. And so you could say, I guess, if you wanted to be a real logical fallacy guy or gal, you could say, well, no, Bruce, you can manufacture chaos. You can, but for the point of my conversation tonight, the state of America is chaos. And they've manufactured it. They lit the fire, but it's out of their control now. Okay? Remember what Kat said? There's just so many soulless people now. So many, another name for them might be non-playing characters. They literally don't know who they are, what they are, or where they are. You can very often find them on TikTok. Very often on X. And just, I mean, I don't even think they would make the Voltaire self-awareness threshold of I think, therefore I am, which is a low threshold. So I'm a little discouraged, that Tucker has joined the Zionist crowd. And there's nobody pointing a path out of this. And that's why I say, look, Okay, there's one other thing I got. Before I go into my big soliloquy, my big rant tonight, let's just take a look at this. It's the longest one and the most religious centric, so give it a good listen, okay?
But like the first non-Jewish Messiah, Cyrus, who was chosen to assist the Jews in re-establishing themselves in the land of Israel after their 70-year exile in Babylon, the current non-Jewish Messiah was chosen to be of service to the Jewish people and the Jewish Messiah. President Trump's right ear was grazed in a symbolic gesture of Exodus 21:6, where the Torah states that a servant who wants to remain with his master needs to have his right ear pierced. Trump was designated as God's servant and anointed one, just like Cyrus the Great almost 2,400 years ago. We have clarified in several videos that the absolute deadline for the redemption is by the end of the Jewish year 5787, which corresponds to October 2nd, 2027, 1,167 days from today. Thus, the redemption will surely occur during Donald Trump's tenure. And I have good reason to believe Donald Trump was chosen to be the one to redeem the sins of Esav through offering his assistance in rebuilding the Holy Temple on the Temple Mount and establishing the Jewish kingdom over all of mankind in Jerusalem. Perhaps it is no accident that the numeric value of Donald Trump in Hebrew is the same as Messiah, son of David, Mashiach ben David, 424. However, Donald Trump is mistaken if he thinks he was chosen to make America great again. He will no doubt do a lot of good things to strengthen our economy, protect our borders, and allow religious freedom to flourish. But America will never become a great country on its own, because Esav's days are numbered. All our elite institutions and centers of power and influence are rotten through and through. The majority of Americans under 30 who are college educated and who are the future leaders of America support the vicious monsters of Hamas rather than the holy and courageous soldiers of the IDF. No human being, even Donald Trump, can reverse this. No. The greatness of America does not lie in its own success. America will be great when the Messiah comes. And the leader of this country, on behalf of all the good people in this country, will humbly present himself to the Jewish Messiah and ask him to accept the United States of America into a new alliance of countries who accept the leadership of the Messiah. A new United Nations will replace the current cesspool that goes by that fraudulent name. A real United Nations, united to serve God, led by the Messiah and based in Jerusalem. And my feeling is that the United States, under President Trump, will be the first nation to join. The meaning of the MAGA movement needs to be adjusted. America was a great idea, but it was never realized. When the American government under FDR chose not to lift a finger to save the Jews from Hitler's inferno, America was not great. They slammed the door shut even to Jews who miraculously were able to escape from the clutches of Nazi Germany. How great was that? And during the Six-Day War, America sent a spy ship, the USS Liberty, to the Mediterranean to relay vital military information to Israel's enemies. How great was that? Although Trump can make America safer and more prosperous, he cannot make America great. And that is not what he was chosen for. I believe he has a much greater historic role. It is no accident that Trump was anointed by God in Pennsylvania, where the Declaration of Independence was signed. The MAGA movement needs to be tweaked from Make America Great Again to Make America Godly Again. Donald Trump has taken the first step by proclaiming to the whole world that which is clear to anyone who wishes to see. The entire episode on Shabbat of July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, was clearly orchestrated by God, and the fact that President Trump turned his head a mere second before the shot grazed his ear was clearly miraculous. I believe this man was chosen to be the one to represent Western society in greeting the Messiah in Jerusalem, chosen to bow his head in humility to Mashiach, and to offer America's complete unconditional assistance to completely eradicate all of the enemies of the Jews and of God, and in the establishment of the eternal kingdom of the Messiah, son of David, who will lead all of mankind to lead moral and holy lives. Numbers chapter 24, where it was specifically a non-Jewish prophet, Bilam, who was chosen to proclaim in the name of God almost 3,300 years ago. I see it, but not now. I perceive it, but not in the near future. A star shall go forth from Jacob, and a staff shall arise in Israel, crushing their enemies and dominating all of mankind. Edom shall be demolished, and Israel shall be triumphant. May we all witness this speedily in our days. Amen.
There you go. There's in the rabbi's words, and most of the Orthodox rabbis are saying something similar now. So if you've never paid attention to Jewish theology before, now would be a good time. Okay? And the reason is, this very small group of people, 15, maybe 20 million of them in total on the planet, very small population, have managed through an innate intelligence. I mean, there's no need to be dismissive or derogatory about this. This is an innate intelligence that is unique to these people. I think it is the intelligence and the natural consequence of being a diaspora people. I think you have to be smarter, and I think certain evolutionary habits become epigenetically entrenched in the race. You know, anthropologists say that people who evolved in the north advanced more quickly mentally because you had to be more mentally agile to survive in the north, in a place that has 4 seasons and a winter that has to be prepared for with foods that are harvested and preserved. So it's a completely different way of living than living where I live now, down in the tropics, right? So, a lot of hey guys, holy cow, boy, it's nice to be missed, it's nice to be wanted, it's nice to be loved, it's nice to be back with you guys. I see a lot of questions in there. I see Joshua asking questions. Why is BB in Washington? Well, I can only speculate, and that's what I'm more than willing to do when I'm in day 8 of a fast and I'm lightheaded and I'm just without any inhibition or barriers. So I'll just say it tonight. It would appear to me that the United States has been turned over to complete Jewish control now. Okay? And I don't think there's anything that would even approximate what I would call a Jewish civil war here. And if you notice, right after the shooting, there were a lot of big liberal Jews who had been very democratic-centric and very much a part of the mechanism that inhibited Donald Trump from 2016 to 2020 through social media, through various forms of media censorship, who have now said he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And the one that comes to mind is Mark Zuckerberg. You know, and Bill Ackman, one of the big donors to Harvard University, Jewish billionaire in the United States, a diehard Democrat. You know, he sort of made the news. He was instrumental in getting that black woman fired as the what do you call the head of a university, the chancellor of Harvard. Right? And all the backstory came out, her plagiarism and everything. I mean, they can do that to anybody at any time. Nobody. And if you're unimpeachable, you never get into the high positions because they don't have any leverage on you. So we basically live in a world now in the West where the more venal and the more corrupt you are, the easier it is to get to the highest points of power. Enter Kamala Harris. And let's be honest, Donald Trump. Okay, because he's no choir boy either. I don't buy this redemption narrative. I think it's poison. I think that the goal... You heard what the rabbi said. Asimov is America. They have a few names for them. When these rabbis speak, they speak in genealogy. Everything is genealogy to these people. The son of, begat. And so everybody is really a member of a tribe. And that tribe has a certain mark upon them from the Jewish perspective. So the Romans are sometimes referred to as Edom or Asimov. I think that's what he called us, Asimov. But you heard what he said, you know, at the beginning of the 5-minute video, he said, you know, Asimov can be redeemed. And then toward the end, he said no. And again, you just get this clear Jewish supremacy. And all the lingering hatreds that come up. These people never forget anything. He brings up the U.S. Liberty, says it was a spy ship giving information to Israel's enemies. I find that very hard to believe. quite frankly. Very hard to believe. You know, but why say something like that out loud, especially at a time in history where you need American support if you're going to survive, because there's nobody else ready to step in and offer support for Israel. And without the United States, I don't know how long they would last. Okay? And this whole, like, everybody's still in the SWIFT system. Everybody not in the BRICS system now is in some way, shape, or form controlled by the United States. By this banking cartel, which has tremendous leverage based out of the Jewish community, both in Israel and outside of Israel. I would also bring up Jeffrey Epstein at this time. Yeah, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. So what do I think is going on now? Why is Bibi in Washington? Because he's formalizing his control over the American government, because all of the, what we call in the Commonwealth, cabinet positions, I guess you could call it the same thing in the U.S., the cabinet. Those are elected officials, or in the U.S. they can be unelected as well. They're appointments made by the president to head the various departments, right? So the Department of Defense, the Department of the Treasury, the Department of State, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of whatever the department is that takes care of medicine. I don't think it's called the Department of Medicine. Maybe the Department of Health. I don't know. I'm not American. You guys tell me. But all of those people now, or like 98% of them, they're all Jewish. It's like literally, you know, you could go back and watch some of those translated Hitler speeches from the late 30s, and it's a one-to-one match for what's going on in the United States today. And it's the same thing, it's the same story every time. They gain control through the financial system, and not by working, okay? Making money on money is no kind of living. It's a sin as far as I'm concerned. And if we look at it through the Abrahamic lens, I would have to say that I agree with the Muslims on this in the Sharia law on economics, which, if you haven't read it, you should take a look at it, because it's an incredibly lucid economic treatise, actually. It's, you know, very brilliant, actually. I know I speak favorably about Islam sometimes, and some of you don't like that, but it's going to be also the longest living of the Abrahamic religions. It's going to go on, I think, for another 400 or 500 years. It's not going anywhere. But the other two, the first two, Christianity and Judaism, are going away. It's almost like Islam was the Abrahamic path that was prepared for after the end times. And the end times are just the change of cycle. It's not the end of the world, okay? It's just, it's a pretty big deal in some ways, but it's not the end of you. Let's put it to you that way. It's not the end of you. It's not the end of your journey in and out of bodies. It's not the end of you. So, but it is something quite astounding going on the planet right now. And if anybody wants to call in, now would be a good time. I don't quite have my podcasting legs back yet. I find an hour hard to do. I'll try to get in the habit of popping on every day and getting back to Stardust Ranch and doing some episodes on that as well. But as I said, I've just been extremely busy with work. Like, not so busy that I can't podcast now, but just a little occupied. And yeah, so this is the situation that we're in now. If I want to look at it at Canada, I would say that Canada has made some kind of a nefarious alliance with China. Okay, nefarious meaning undivine, unclean, like something under the table. It seems to me as though China has a foothold in Canada now. I mean, they do in the U.S. too, but I mean, I don't think they really want to tell the United States citizens this, you know. So, it's just a shit show, man. Just a shit show. So this rule from Jerusalem will be a hell on earth. It'll work for a short period of time. and then all hell is going to break loose, a level of chaos we haven't seen. Okay, so this is the rising of the negative principality. And the negative principality is what the Jews call their savior, their Messiah. And the negative principality will be a terrible force upon the world, and do horrible things. And this has yet to come as well. If Trump's this guy, then, he's going to bring in this era, right? And it is really amazing when I think of what he's been through in the last, 4 years, from 2020 to 2024 now. 3.5 years. He's been through so much. It's unbelievable. It's been nonstop. Whether it's theater or not, I don't know. If it's theater, I think the actors don't know they're acting. They're like next level non-playing characters. Is Hillary Clinton really a non-playing character? Because she, for real, seems to want to kill Donald Trump now. But this is going to be kind of unstoppable now. And I think to put Kamala Harris up as the opposition is to say that you don't have any opposition. It's to acquiesce the election. It's to give in. It's to yield, because there's no way Kamala Harris can win. She's just like, I don't want to be too derogatory here, but she's the political equivalent of the force that was guarding Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. She's a diversity, equity, and inclusion politician, right? And that's why she keeps playing that card. She's not even black, by the way. She's Indian. And she grew up where I grew up, or she went to school in Toronto. She's not really even fully American. Maybe she was born there, but she spent her formative years. She grew up in Canada. She's a party girl. She's been all around, man. She's a hardcore party girl, right? Is she married now? I think she is married, yeah, to some white dude. Yeah. But I'll leave that alone. Marriage is sacred, everybody deserves their space. But she would be a disaster as the lead. Can you imagine her leading the free world at the most precarious moment in the history of the West since, let's say, World War II? Can you imagine this person leading the free world? And they're moving to a conscription now. They want to get legislation passed. There's something approximating continuity of government was signed as an executive order. Biden has relinquished a lot of his power, and so that power goes to the department heads. If you go and you read the memorandum, the executive order, and as I said, all of those department heads are Jewish. So what's Bibi Netanyahu doing in Washington? Probably briefing his cabinet, because it's his cabinet, and they're all with Israel now, and Israel is Ukraine. It's all the same thing. It's the same people. It's the same interests. It's the same group. Okay? And this group and its design, and if you think Vladimir Putin opposes this, you're crazy. He's in on it too. The World Jewish Congress calls Russia one of the best countries in the world for Jews to live in. Okay? So they control a vast amount of the wealth in Russia. A lot of those oligarchs are Jewish. Okay? So what kind of a person makes all that money? Well, you don't make all that money just to have the money. Those people are making that money to take control over nations. They're setting up those situations, and they've got cooperative international support and financing. And when countries go under and everything starts to sell for like 10 cents on the dollar, which is what's going to happen to America and maybe Canada, that's when they come in and buy. It's like Germany between World War I and World War II. And, so this is what's going on. And the options before America now are simply, do you want to keep going down this progressive hell, which is ostensibly a communist takeover, hence the Gulag, which is why I call it the Gulag option. Do you want the communist takeover, or do you want the rule by Noahide law? And they're trying to make the communist takeover look as horrible as possible, because what they really want us to choose is Noahide law. And I'm telling you, the only solution I can see in all of this is to choose yourself, to put your own interests before anything else at this point, to make sure you live in a place where you can survive any circumstance, including food shortages, power outages. You could heat by a wood-burning stove if you had to. You could cook on a stove if you had to. Can you survive any circumstance at this point? Can you? Right? How long is this instability going to last? What is the new world order that comes out of it going to look like? Why is Yuval Harari saying that if Trump gets a second term, the new world order will be destroyed? Okay? Because he's telling the truth, because he's a Jewish guy masquerading as a social philosopher. And generally, at the end of the day, a Jewish guy is a Jewish guy. That's his primary identity. Social philosopher is secondary. So when he says if Trump gets in again, the New World Order is over, what he means is that another kind of global order is going to come in. Okay? Because this situation is going to have to be global in some way, shape, or form. Because we all globally cooperate. We all trade now. Okay? Everybody trades, which I think is a bad idea. They say that trade and commerce has always been a part of human affairs. You've got the Silk Road, you've got the European trading by caravan, and, people want to buy goods and wares and stuff like that, and I get all that, but in an age of, let's take the idea of the 15-minute city. If you are going to take that concept seriously, I would extend it to the 100,000, 100 by 100 to 10,000 square kilometer life zone. So in that, you go 100 kilometers, which is 50 miles, 50 miles, 50 miles, 50 miles. Okay, and the square yards in there, or the square meters in there, if I stay with the metric, or the kilometers, would be 10,000 square kilometers. And everything is accessible to each other within 30 or 40 kilometers, and you could put in electrical rail lines, and everything you need should be produced there. Pretty much everything except for specialty items, but all of your food should be coming in from that area. It should be grown around where you're living. People should be spread. If you're going to take this idea seriously, then take it seriously. If you don't want people moving around and using energy, then follow my model. Put them all in earthbag homes around the tropics and give them a hectare of food, 2.6 acres to grow food on, or to graze animals on. Okay? That's the way to do it. You don't put them all into little tiny apartments. And man, you should see some of the housing that Trudeau is recommending. So basically, the housing that Trudeau is recommending to solve the housing crisis in Canada now, it's like an apartment building that's like a Motel 6. That's it. It's like the simplest box design you could imagine. It's just like, this would not have been imaginative at any time in the last 120 years of North American architectural history. It's a catastrophe. It's an absolute catastrophe. So I don't think anything they're doing is going to work now. And the reason I don't think it's going to work is I think that a greater force has come in. I'll call it God for now. But there's a greater force than these fourth dimensional forces that have been operating. The ones I describe in the light of darkness and the devil in us, these forces are being checkmated now. And whatever it is above them is benign. Okay, meaning that it's not malignant, it's benign. It wants a fair outcome to this situation, and the ways in which we have been controlled in the past have been taken away from them, which was generally done on the fourth dimension. So now they have to bring everything down into the 3D, which is why all the technological control is going on now. Okay, behind the curtain of this story, everything is spiritual. You know, even when you discuss politics the way I'm discussing it tonight, remember, you know, the keynote of my podcast is everything is spiritual. So what's happening in the world now is a reflection of what's happening on the other side, as above, so below, as there, so here. Okay? And the spiritual, the status quo on the other side has changed. I'm telling you right now. Okay? And it was long overdue as far as I'm concerned. And a lot of people are confused right now, but I don't know if they're going to be able to get this temple solution. And both Ari Sharif, you know, the liberal Jewish comedian, said that the next temple is coming. Okay? So this will be the first time the Jewish temple's been up since Christ walked the earth. Think about that for a moment, okay? Think about the symbolic value or the symbolic effect that would have on people of the Abrahamic faith system, especially latent practitioners or non-practitioners, cultural adherents. So you're going to get this flush of cultural pride. Hey, I was right all along. My religion was right. Look at the miracles. God saved Trump. Something on the other side saved him. There's no doubt about that, in my opinion. But I don't think it was God. Okay? I don't think it was God. So, we're living in the impossible now. And that's the best I can do for a return podcast. If anybody wants to call in, I'll wait another 30 seconds. It's 864-810-1039. Or you can call me at Seen That Tinker 1. And we'll have a brief chat about tonight's show. Otherwise, I'm going to sign off. I find myself sleeping like just a log on this. I cannot recommend fasting enough, okay? So I'm going to go 2 weeks. So I have 6 more days to go. After I go to bed tonight, I have 6 more days to go to 14 days. And today was my 8th day. No food. Bob can't believe it. He said, wow, this is like pretty disciplined. And, you know, it's hard at sometimes, man. Just like passing by the trail mix, knowing it's got cashews in it or something, or passing by the yogurt, or it's hard, but keeps me centered, keeps me focused, and keeps me honest. So, like I said, I'm going to try and, you know, do these shows on the regular now, and try to get back to daily podcasting, because I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the rapport we've built up, the people I've met, and the community. I'm enjoying it immensely, okay? So I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca